5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live. What's up, Xeno? How's it going? Oh shit, my sound is on. There we go. How's it going, dude?
I'm alright. So does that mean that you didn't actually swear on the show, or you did swear? Because you definitely came up on mine.
Who knows? I don't worry too much about that. Well, you can cut it out for your video.
I most certainly will. Don't worry about that.
I was actually surprised. To go a little bit off topic, that on your Arbiters video that we did, that you actually bleeped out the fox that we did instead of just saying just cutting everything away. It actually included the thing.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try and start doing some more censorship. Mostly because, A, it's funny, right, when it happens, and B, it's... I think it's, a little nicer for YouTube to go, you're not necessarily a mature channel.
Are you not? We're getting into a way different topic here, so let's move that aside, but I think it's a very interesting thing to talk about as well, the censorship in the sense of YouTube when it comes to swear words. Yeah. Anyway, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the very first FrameCast, which is a show that Xeno and I are pitching here. The very first episode. Most likely, we'll be doing a lot more. And the idea behind this show is that we go a little bit deeper on topics that concern Warframe, which might be controversial, or I don't know, but I don't think controversial is the right word, because if I think about controversial, I think about drama, and we're not really looking for drama here. It's more like what we're talking about today. Does the Devstream actually overhype? Most of the time when people are talking about topics like these, I feel that it's addressed very surface level, and for a bit of deeper conversation, we're often able, especially I feel on my stream, we're able to understand more of it. So, of course, I've talked about a lot of topics on my stream, but if you guys don't know Xeno here has been running, I think, the longest Warframe podcast in the entire, he's looking away right now, in the entire Warframe community, called the 10 O'Clock Podcast. And he'll probably do a better job at podcasting than me, but I'm excited to have him on. Yeah. How's it going, dude?
I'm good. Of course, you had to ask me that as soon as I started drinking. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm interested to jump straight into this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Michelle, what is our first topic for our first episode?
All right, so I think I want to address one more thing before we get into the topic, is that the structure of this podcast is that we have a discussion with the two of us until we feel that it's we've reached a point that we're happy with it, or that we have exhausted ourselves. At that point, the discussion will no longer be between the two of us, but we're going to be answering questions for a certain amount of time. So after that, we can, have some time for questions. We'll not be reading chat, even though it's streamed live on Twitch. And afterwards, there will be a shortened down version in video form by Xeno on his YouTube channel. So yeah,
I just want to clarify, we're not going to be focusing heavily on chat, but we will keep an eye on it. At least I'm going to try and keep an eye on it, the lovelies, and any huge revelation of, oh my god, how did we forget this? I'll try and actually raise it up during the actual episode and things. But yeah, so
yeah, I've chat here as well in my corner. If I'm looking right there, I'm looking at Xeno, and then if I look there, I can see the chat. We'll bring it, please, add on to the discussion, because, if you have some interesting things to say that you feel need to be added to this, do it. But yeah, let's get into the topic. Let's get into the Devstream topic. Do you want to open it, Xeno? Or should I?
Whoa, you just completely threw me a curveball there, man. No, you start, because that has completely just thrown me.
All right. So the topic of today is, does the Devstream overhype? So this is a question that I've seen being, I've seen popping up a little bit more ever since the last 2-3 years. Though I can't really pin down a time when it really like started, because it's one of those topics that's kind of concurrent. But especially when it comes to like the recent content droughts, which we do. I'm saying loosely because we haven't really defined a content drought yet. A lot of people are. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of people. I'm noticing people moving away from dev streams, or not being as satisfied with what they're announcing on the dev streams. As an example, people are getting people were getting a little bit upset last year when the sacrifice seemed to not release before TennoCon 2018, even though it was announced on TennoCon 2017. There were a lot of like big announcements in the in the January of 2018, where we had 4 weeks where Sacrifice, Plains of Fortuna, Dark Sectors, and Railjack. I don't think Railjack, but like raids. There were like Dark Sector and raids were discussed 4 weeks in a row. People are like, there is a question as to how much of the dev stream is actual dev stream content, as like, hey, this is what's coming up very soon, and how much is, hey, we're showing off this one thing, but you don't know when it comes out. Is it getting a lot, like, I need to get more to the point. I'm aware. But, okay, so...
Shall I paraphrase?
Yeah.
Cool, right. So what Michelle is lovingly saying here is that we are going to discuss at length the value of introducing to the audience, to the tenor amongst us, the new features coming to Warframe super early on, right? So, and then waiting months, if not years, for the actual content to come out eventually, right? So I think there's... What would you say? So I'm just gonna pitch you the question here. What would you say is the worst instance of DE telling us too soon?
I think multiple spring to mind. One of my most important ones is the Kingpin system, which in 2016 was announced for the first time in Devstream 86 on the 20th of January. Actually, 2017. The Devstream 86 January 2017 was announced for the very first time. Then we heard about it for about half a year, and afterwards we've never heard about it. And it's still unclear as to when that comes in. Though another instance would be the 4 weeks in January of 2018, where we had 4 major game elements: the Sacrifice, which was a big quest; the Plains of Venus, which was one of the main updates of 2018. The Dark Sectors, which I don't think we've had a new update on, and the raids, which might have become Railjack, but we haven't heard an update from. Those were 4 things that were discussed in 4 consecutive dev streams, which were pretty much obviously not gonna happen in the 4 weeks that they were announced.
Yeah, I can. To be honest, I would argue that the worst one was the War Within. We had just had the second dream. You know, everyone was super happy over the sensation that was the second dream. And then immediately after, so that went from December to January. So they had the Christmas shutdown. They came back in January and like, we're going to do the next one. It's called The War Within. It will be featuring later this year. You know, that came out it was supposed to come out in June. Actually, no, July. The first part of it, which was the Lenaro patch, that was supposed to be the whole bundle of everything, including The War Within. Didn't have it. Then there was... oh, no, it wasn't Lenaro. It was Spectres of the Rail.
Yeah.
And then it was Lenaro. Then it was... And War Within just kept on getting pushed back further and further and further. And in all honesty, that was the update that I was just like, either don't say anything or just give it to us.
I agree, because the War Within actually came off the spectacularly secret second dream. Like, I don't think a lot of people were aware at that point. I've looked back, and I don't think a lot of mention has been in dev streams of the second dream, which was basically like dropped on us as this very first cinematic quest. Now I see Tiger Stripe bringing up a very interesting point in chat where he talks about spending too much time on hyping, making jokes, like fluff to the dev stream. So I think that before we get into that, and before we go over too many topics, let's point it back to the essentials. What do you think, what in your mind is a dev stream supposed to be? What should a dev stream showcase? What does it do right now? And what does it fail at right now? Let's start off with, what should a dev stream be in your mind?
I personally feel that a dev stream should be, this is what we're looking at now.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're looking at in the future. This is what we're considering, right? This is like really over the horizon sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is the stuff we've discarded. And no, I would like, this is the stuff we've discarded, put on the back burner or what have you. And that's it. That's what it should be. It shouldn't be completely formulaic. They're allowed to be jovial and relaxed and everything, because, how professional are we on 10 o'clock?
I mean, super professional in my opinion. It took me a really long time to figure out who Drew was when the glyphs came up.
For real.
Actually, I think the first 10 o'clock that I watched was with DE Drew. So it's like, oh, it's Drew's choice and Lost choice, because like you're like there's Casino. I was like, oh well, DE Drew chose one, and then next week it's like, oh, he's still choosing glyphs or clan emblems. So I agree. There are multiple elements to a dev stream. I think that when it comes to the main role, I believe, of a dev stream is a announcement planning role. So like, hey, we have a dev stream every 2 weeks, which is not without a reason, because you can also have a dev stream every month. You can have a dev stream every 2 months, but they choose this 2-week schedule, which I think originated from the idea that Warframe had like updates almost weekly when it was conceived. We had every week, we had new weapons, we had like 10-0 reinforcements, which, I mean, we've moved away from that, which is also a topic that I don't want to touch on today, because that's a whole other thing on its own. But I think that the 2-week schedule is still pretty fitting for Warframe. I think that the most important thing that you should look at within those 2 weeks is, number one, short-term plans. So in the coming 2 weeks between this dev stream and next dev stream, what are we intending to release to the public? Then number two, from this dev stream until like a month or 2 months from now, what are our big scale plans, and when can you almost expect them? So of course, keep us updated about maybe a new Planes or the new War or Railjack, being like, hey, it's still in development, so expect it around here. That's optional, but I think that's nice to like keep track over the general scheme, so people that aren't really interested in like small updates be like, hey, this is when the Planes of Fortuna is coming out. This is when New War is coming out. You kind of like keep track of those projects, and very important, projects that have been dropped. So I don't think that this is ever deeply discussed with Warframe, where Warframe's dev stream, where they talk about, hey, the Kingpin system, we've dropped that. I don't think they've ever said that, or at least I haven't been able to find that. And to get back to the point of like the jokes, I think that if those 3 points are met, where they have this is going to happen within 2 weeks, we have a long-term planning where we actually have some solid dates and like some solid like we give you some ideas as to like, hey, you can expect the Railjack, you can expect Railjack in between May and July of 2019, if they would have said that at the start of the year, it's a very broad time span, but you know that's going to happen. And then also Free, when they do like, hey, we've worked in the Kingpin system, we think it's not the optimal way to do it, we cut it, we're now putting it on the back burner, we're not working on it anymore, or we'll find another way of introducing it, then if you do those things, then around that, you can have fluff. You can have the joking around, because it shouldn't be a presentation to a board of managers. It's still an interaction with community, and it's an interaction with a community of players. But I think that those would be essentials. Go ahead.
To be a bit of devil's advocate, I think it's difficult, right? We are veterans, right? Mm-hmm. Looking at the chat, I'm pretty sure that there's a number of veterans in chat right now. I'm pretty sure I classify Tiger Stripe as certainly as a veteran. And to us, we want sort of like a different attitude on the Devstream. We want to see, you know, this is what's happened. We have shelved the Kingpin system. Right? Mm-hmm. We've not been happy with it. We had Megan on episode 200 of 10 o'clock, and she's pretty much confirmed when they weren't happy with what the Kingpin system was turning into, so they shelved it. They then did an announcement. Oh yeah, we're still working on it. Like, oh god, within the last 6 months, I want to say. And I think they were gauging community response, and if the community was happy to see this stuff, then they would go away and they would actually complete the production of it. If the community didn't care, then they would just leave it at the back as a side project. But for you, me, and other people in the chat and what have you, all veterans, we want to know what's happening, because we have an invested interest in every aspect of this game. But for a lot more of the viewership that probably just want to sit there for a chance of winning platinum or whatever, they're more interested in the positive notes, and they think the negative notes are bad for the game's publicity. So like, they're not doing that thing I don't know about. Oh no, this game's going downhill. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, and it's something that I've criticized DE for during that 2018 start of the year period, where they had all these big announcements on the Devstream, and they also like what they did when we had the 2018 content drop, as I would call it, like the first content drop. And I probably will get in a lot of trouble for saying that, because like people don't like the word content drop. I was told.
Are you saying drought?
Yeah, drought.
Okay,
whatever. Drought. See, I'm already getting in trouble with you. But yeah, I had people tell me that I should be glad that DE comes into work, and I shouldn't criticize them. But I'm sorry, I will. If only if I deem fit. But the first, like, that was like the first 2-3 months of 2018. They had a lot of these big things that they were talking about, which I mentioned before, and they also had that they would release skins every single Devstream. They would be talking about, hey, new weapon skin, here's a new Xenogelion skin. And the idea that I had behind that was that a skin is not necessarily content. If you think about well, let me define like content as in, it is not necessarily primary content. It is secondary content. It is something that's derived from a frame, and that is an upgrade to a frame. It's more like a side thing to a frame than it is like an original piece of content that stands by a standalone piece of content. You have a standalone piece of content that's what I call primary content. So new Warframe is a standalone thing, and you have a skin which is derived from the Warframe, which I would call secondary content. Secondary content will only take you so far, because if Warframe would have done like 6 years of secondary content, we would still be with the exact same launcher. It would just look pretty, the way that you could just decide which version you want it to look like. So the tactic that I assumed worked with that was that, hey, we take what is it? we take these skins, which we have Xenogen creators created for us, or we create a deluxe skin, and we put it in, which isn't necessarily primary content, but we can just announce that we have this coming up. And this week we can announce that we have a sacrifice quest coming up, and the next week we can announce that we have this thing coming up, which doesn't really add anything to the game. However, it is an announcement that you have something new coming in. So I can definitely see that they have this like kind of, I wouldn't say forced positive attitude, but they're kind of forcing more the positive things over like canceling things, because otherwise you would have this negative idea.
Atmosphere.
Yeah.
No, I get entirely where you're coming from, and I do personally think it's really important to portray positivity, like everything's cool. Like, if you think about all the dev streams, right, bar TennoCon, nearly all of them are, what's called, Rebecca's gone away and she's come up with, here's a list of stuff that we're going to talk about, and often the devs are just like completely thrown for a loop and like, oh, I didn't realize you were going to talk about that, and they do, right? However, the difference with any of the live events is it's pretty much scripted to a T, right? Think about when they came on stage last year and Sheldon started playing on the Switch. He's like, there's no way, like, I'm Sheldon. I'm bored of this thing already. I'm going to start playing Warframe on the Switch. I know. I will just sporadically jump down off the screen. Sorry, off the stage.
Yeah.
I will show everyone what I'm playing and then take it up to the camera. It had to be scripted.
A very conveniently placed camera, may I just say.
Yeah, very conveniently placed camera. Oh, I wonder what that was for. But the whole point is that it was to drive positivity for the game's publicity. Right? There's one thing I want to say, because Tiger Strike has turned around and said something that I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that too, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. He says, I'd like it if they'd select content creators to cover updates as well. It allows for promotion from both sides, in my opinion. Right?
Yeah.
I agree with this. And to highlight on it, Loz and I were actually the very first guinea pigs for doing this. They lovingly flew us out to Canada to actually try it out, to try and, see if we could actually make promotional material for them for the Fortuna update. In fact, when we went out there was no name for the update, right? In fact, we didn't even know the place was called Fortuna. We thought it was called Solaris, because that's pretty much the only keyword that they had given us on the dev streams. However, we'd made the video for them and we were sat on it for months. And it came out after TennoCon, and it was just like, oh, this is nowhere near as cool as them demoing actual Fortuna. Oh, okay. So,
all right. So to clear it up for people that might not be aware, you were invited at like the start, somewhere early on in 2018, if I'm correct. March of 2018, to come over to the studios in Canada and play around with the dev build to make a video around that. Both you and Laws and what was the other creator's name?
Porphy.
Both, like, you guys were flown in and you could do whatever. Well, whatever you want within certain constraints. What were the?
I can't go into detail on what the constraints were, but what I can say was that it wasn't working, right, until the morning we were due to start recording.
Oh,
right.
Ouch.
So, and that's no fault of their own, because it's completely dependent on, their dev resources. I know this from a personal experience as a developer. The number of times I get pulled off whatever project I'm working on to fulfill some other task, You know, I get asked all the time, you know, can this happen? Can that happen? Sometimes I get my line managers who are overzealous to think that it can happen. And I'm like, no, you know. So what you call it? They tried. They
Yeah.
tried, and they got it working when we come to record. And yeah.
All right. So I want to take 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 that idea of like that you guys were able to create content for an announcement which didn't really turn out to be announced because you were flown in at March of 2018, were able to create a content and then that released after Fortuna was announced. But one thing that I thought was interesting because Tiger Stripe brought up the allow content creators to announce updates. I think that one of the things that you actually just said before that was that on like 10 o'clock 200 you had Megan on where she said that they dropped the Kingpin system.
I wouldn't say drop, but they said that they shelved it
Yeah.
because they weren't happy where it was going.
All right, so that is something that I have not seen on Devstream, and I think is a way in which a update or a new or information that wasn't publicly released before was released through a creator channel. However, I think that what we find with both the announcement or like saying that the Kingpin system is shelved on 10 o'clock 200 and with your two videos, I think there are two separate problems with that. With that, that it was to no one outside of 10 o'clock or those who are familiar with 10 o'clock clear that that information would be put forward in that episode. And number two, and I think that this applies more to the other two videos that you and Porphy made, they weren't necessarily announcements. They were more follow-ups after the big reveal had already happened. And I actually don't know necessarily how much that was pushed and how much you've seen like that being pushed. Like how many people that normally wouldn't see your content were able to like were watching that video because Warframe put it out as a sort of official announcement video.
Part of the concept for the video was that it was supposed to be a official tease of the upcoming Fortuna content. But one of the difficulties is that really both of those videos should have been out like way before they actually were. Like we're talking months before they were, and there was difficulties. Like it it was a bit of a kick to the face or kick to the nuts when the Sunny Solaris video didn't come out until July after TennoCon. Yeah, okay, fine. We still had a release and everything, which was good. People still enjoyed it. It still got like a spotlight from DE and things, but it didn't measure up to what the reveal was during TennoCon. The big thing is Porphy actually finished his entire video in 24 hours.
Wow.
Like he had done the whole thing back in March.
Mm-hmm.
Ours wasn't ready until the beginning of May. You know, because I required like various different things. Like I needed a voice actor, I needed to edit it, but the deadline wasn't until like early May, and then it just got pushed back and back and back. So, but yeah,
Wow.
it's completely victim to the better processes of how DE works or how any company works.
Yeah, it's I mean, we can talk about that more, but I think we're kind of straying off the dev stream, and I kind of want to like zero in into what we think that the dev stream is and should be, so that we have like so that we can like build upon this idea. Hey, we brought forward this idea that the dev stream should put forward content that's being released from the next step, from between that and the next Devstream, and then towards like a greater scale with some some like approximation of ideas. As an
Yeah.
example, where we had the roadmap of 2019, which was something akin to the idea of like this looking ahead in the future and giving you an approximation of release dates. However, they were looking ahead in the future and they didn't give any release dates. Where I believe that everything at the time that they wrote on the board, except for the new open world, they said would at that time be before TennoCon. Um, which like I remember we were watching that on stream and everyone was like, well, that's not going to happen. And we're seeing it right now that a lot of that stuff is not happening. So I think that, can we agree that those 2 points, even though we don't see them happening right now, should make up a death stream? Do you agree with that? Or
It's oh god, it's difficult, man. Like I'd love to say, hey, look, this is how it should be. In you know, if you say it's going to be out before TennoCon, it should be out before TennoCon. But I mean, I think I think the big thing for me is that I would rather have a complete product than something akin to Anthem,
I agree.
right? Because
I
one of the biggest problems with Anthem is that it's kind of a train wreck,
Oh, it is. It's
right?
horrible. It's Anthem is like it had so much problems, but it's like it's not really. I think it's the state of Arcwing, but then the entire game, and I think Arcwing might even be better off. However, to clarify, what I mean is that um, with the longer, so like I think we can both agree on that. Like it should like a dev stream. Point number one, what a dev stream is that looks at what happens between this dev stream and the next dev stream. Whether
Mm.
that may be something, whether that may be nothing. It's just like, hey, we're releasing this or we're not releasing anything for the coming 2 weeks. That's it. Point number two, what I mean with like the long term plans is, if you're gonna do a roadmap like what you did, we would kind of have a soft version of the roadmap every dev stream, where it would be, hey, we're working on let's say the new war, like we're working on the new war, expect that somewhere October, November 2019. And if nothing changes about that, we don't hear about it. But if something changes, like, hey, Railjack has been taking longer than expected, so the new war will be delayed, and this looks like, so the new war, expect that to like be November, December, and expect this to be then and then. And with the roadmap that I talked about at the start of the year, I wish they would have given us like date ranges on that, just like I just said. But also, like, if it doesn't happen, you don't have to stick to it, because I am gonna assume that they have deadlines on it. But deadlines are there to like be pushed back, even though that's not necessarily what they're for. But they say like, hey, we know we set this at the start of the year. But we've had these new features. We've redesigned things. We were working on Railjack, so expect these things to come later, so people will know what's going on. Would you agree to that? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I'm like, oh, I was listening to you saying it, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm being super on the fence about this. No, I think I would prefer what you've described. Let's have, hey, this is what's gonna come between now and next dev stream. I was thinking to myself, should they actually make the dev streams less frequent? But I thought, no, I get kind of antsy when there's not a dev stream. Also, mostly because it helps for making of other content. But I think that there is some difficulty, because if they were to turn around and say, okay, well, we're going to release, what's the name of the Jovian Accord between now and the next dev stream. Oh no, it's between now and the next. Oh no. Like there's some hiccups. It's between now and the next dev stream. Okay, we were kind of surprised at how many problems there were. It's going to be before the next dev stream. Oh my god, we give up. You know, so
Yeah, I think that a situation like that would be, I'd be surprised if that would happen really really frequently. Though with DE, you never know. But like I think that um, if I were if you manage a company and like you probably have more experience in the field of like development,
Yeah.
which is more akin to what DE does. Um, I think it's not a situation that you would strive for where a project which is aimed to be released within the next 2 weeks gets pushed back so much that for the next 10 weeks, it's like, oh, it's going to be next week. It's going to be next week. It's going to be next week. Because not even for the community itself, I would believe that for the company itself, it would be not very good, would not be an optimal situation where projects are scheduled to be done and where it's like, okay, we scheduled this to be done, and after that, we move on to the next thing. And then things might pop up, which unexpected things will pop up, which you might expect to happen to like be calculated into deadlines. I've worked in companies where we've had deadlines where because they weren't met, there was like a lot of overtime, or they were pushed back, and then like the future deadlines were adjusted. I would expect that if unexpectancies pop up that put the deadline in jeopardy, that they're calculated again to like a certain degree of certainty as like, hey, this might probably take 4 weeks because like something that you say, okay, well, we have like a deadline that we have to push back, which is already a big thing because you set up that calculated deadline and you have to push it back. All right, you push it back, but how far do you push it back? And if you then expect that the deadline error is 2 weeks and it turns out to be 8 weeks, then I think that that's a pretty big error that I wouldn't want to see repeated that much. But I don't know whether that's like very specific to the field of development. So yeah.
So I'm gonna respond to that
Mm-hmm.
plus what Circle of Psy has actually said. If you're able to talk about it, how long do you think D can get away with such delays before the backlash becomes too much? Look at Anthem's backlash, for example. So I feel that I can't really speak for Anthem or anything like that because when I played the demo, I was just like, "What the hell's this?" And then I pretty much dropped it like a
It's hot.
sack of doo doo. But it like there's so many instances where even in my own job, I've been working on something, and then I said, "Look, I feel we're behind on this because I started on this project late." Okay, well, we'll take that into consideration. Then we're looking to the next task or what have you, and I'm just like, oh no, it's fine, it's fine, because you've done all the work that's listed. Yeah, but there's stuff that isn't listed. And it's like, oh yeah, no, but we could get it done. We can get it done. It's like, yeah, but you keep on taking me off stuff, right? So ultimately, I got taken off one project 2 weeks, right? And now we're 2 weeks behind, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, but how can we be 2 weeks behind? The stuff said that we were ahead of everything, and like, yeah, but you didn't take into consideration testing would find so many small little bugs, right? Really outlying bugs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I could do testing myself, but I'm not necessarily going to find everything. That's why we have a certified tester. And I think the big thing with DE, Blizzard used to have this attitude as well that it will be out when it's ready. So they have to make sure that the product is the best possible product can be. Like, I have that with my job.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to amateurishly release a product that is just going to fall flat on its face. But there are deadlines. Sometimes you have to make condolences. I think that's the right word. Yeah, where you basically just go, okay, well, we're just going to have to call this a feature.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Batman shoots himself with the grappling hook. If you look down, that's a feature. It allows you to jump better.
Coptering, that was the best feature in Warframe. Um,
Yeah.
but okay, so like that is That is a situation that I can totally imagine would happen. Where you'd be taken off a project for 2 weeks. Oh yeah.
I realized I didn't actually answer the question. How long can they go before they suffer the backlash? I
Yeah.
think it's entirely based on how much they advertise the stuff, right? So if they're like, The War Within is coming out in 6 months' time, 4 months' time, 3 months' time, 2 months' time, it's coming out tomorrow, next week, 2 months away, 5 months away. Oh crap, we've completely overestimated this. The War Within was the one that really frustrated me,
It's
right?
it's interesting because between the second dream and the War Within there was 11 months. Second Dream came out in December. Next year, War Within was November. Between the War Within and the Sacrifice, there was 16 or 17 months, if I'm correct, because War Within came out in November, and then not the next year, but the year after it was June, so it was like 17 months or so, which was a far bigger span of time than between the War Within and the Second Dream. So they announced far less, so I think there was like less people talking about it. There are two things though that I think that I wonder about, which might be very problematic. One is that even if you can convince the public that it's all right, we're not gonna say that it's coming out tomorrow, it's coming out tomorrow, it's coming out next week, it's coming out. You will commit like commercial suicide if you do that.
Yes.
But not just for that, I would also think that for the workflow and for like a professional level attitude, if I were to run a business and I were to like be your employer and you were to have this one project where we'd set your deadline at 2 weeks, you'd have it done by 2 weeks, but you say, hey, you didn't account for the testing. Then we would have to apply the extra time of testing, which you already like predicted would happen, and we neglected to include. I would be damn sure that the next time we would include that, because you also have not only you have customers to satisfy with that product, and it's bad if you say it's going to be done in 2 weeks' time and then you have to delay that. But at the same time, also for your professional workflow, dealing with constant delays and not adapting to them is a bad thing. So I think that besides question of how long can they get away with it, I don't think that just applies to the public, because like most of the things, Warframe can get away with things as long as people continue to play the game and buy the stuff. Then as long as you play the game and you buy your platinum and you buy your prem access, Warframe can do as much as they want, because as long as they keep you around. But I think that as at a professional attitude, just within the company, not like considering everyone around it, having repeated situations where you would have what's it called, delays, and not adapting to those delays would be a unfavorable situation.
I think any company worth its weight in salt, I don't know, like imagine the good phrase. Any company that's worth its weight in gold, knows that if there's a problem, you need to prevent it from happening again. Yeah. So, like I've worked for some companies and they're like, no, we're doing everything perfectly. You're the developer. You don't know what you're doing at all. The company I'm currently working for, absolutely amazing. Every single time we have an issue, we do something to change it. And I very much imagine DE is the same. Oh, we're getting issues with, I don't know, testing something. Get more testers. Make more automated tests. Like, when we went to, like, people say DE don't test their stuff, right? I'm damn well sure they do, because I've been to their studios, I've been shown around. Like, one of the people that I know is part of their QA process. I don't really know.
It might be the same person that we know on their QA team. Did he go to EGX 2016?
Don't think so. No, he definitely didn't.
All right. Well, then I know a different person. I met him that same year. You met him too, in the UK 2016. I was there too, and Connor was there too, and he got accepted to DE like the year later. So I met him on TanaCon.
Oh, I know who you're talking
Yeah.
about, but that's not who I'm talking about.
All right. Then you know two people on the team.
That's subtle. No. Wink, wink. Yeah. No. So, but the point is that I got shown around. This is the entirety of our QA department. It's like, holy crap! This is clearly an area for like, I don't know, 15 to 20 people. Like, my company has one, right?
Wow.
One QA person. But it's important to realize that, the point was when I first went, they had, I don't know, 20 to 40 PCs, right? Even stacked on top of each other, curiously, yeah? All just running tests, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Just running simulations to see whether or not the game would bug out. There was one of the tests I remember was a Sarin, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like teleporting. They were forcibly teleporting the Sarin character all over the Grineer asteroid tile set. I can't tell you why they were doing it. I don't know what they were trying to test. Maybe they were trying to test whether or not someone could break into the game, like, I'm at the exit, I've won. Try and fake the system. But it was really interesting to see, like, all of these machines, all with monitors attached, just spewing out different tests. It was awesome.
Yeah, like I think that the statement that Warframe doesn't test its game is very, very ungrounded. I know that one of the buggiest updates we've had, the Sanctuary Onslaught update, that was pretty bad. But I learned later on that the update itself ran very, very well on dev servers, and then it was pushed to the public servers, and it just crashed. So
Really?
that just like everything that happened around ESO or Sanctuary Onslaught, that update, people were very furious about it because there were a lot of bugs and it slowed down performance on the general Warframe build. I know that it affected like a lot of people that were also not playing Sanctuary Onslaught. They also had frame issues and stuff like that, and that was tested and it worked, but then it was released and it didn't work. So like those things are completely something that you can't really account for at all times. And I don't think that's a problem. Like it are things that happen. Like just the pushback is like the continuous pushback is something that's a little bit problematic. But like I think that like let's move it back to the Devstream. I think that we can both agree on the two things that it stands that like the Devstream should stand for, like short-term updates and then like keeping us in touch with the longer-term stuff. Even if that isn't like, hey, we have all these things in the works, let's go over them. But like, let's say something changes, they keep us updated. Now, the third thing that we brought forward earlier on in the podcast, I think is something that requires deeper discussion, which is keeping people updated with the things that might be dropped. With because like I think that
just to highlight, and let's not cause panic, we're talking either dropped or shelved. Yeah, for later development.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I came around because I've been doing some research for the what is it for this podcast. Let me see if I can find it right here. So
I know I know there's actually a list on the Warframe wiki of unreleased content, or so I'm just going to see if I can find that as well. So what were you going to say?
All right, so I have a list right here, which you can see in stream. It's a list of all things that were introduced from Devstream 80 on, and that were announced for the very first time on a Devstream, and then when they were introduced. So like the spear gun, which is the Javlog, was announced on September the 16th and was released on December the 16th of 2016, and then there's 3 months in between. One thing that I came across were the Fortuna spiders. Those were announced in November. Those were announced on April 13, 2017, and they were only brought into the game on November 8th, 2018. That's 1 year and 7 months. However, they were announced as Corpus spiders, which they have become. But projects can also be like, hey, maybe they have the design for Corpus spiders, and then they come across with this idea of a Fortuna update, and then that fits very well together. So things being dropped or being shelved or being pushed back can also be that they synergized within two systems, which who knows, might one day happen with the Kingpin system. But more importantly, the most important thing of all, which everyone is still eagerly awaiting, is the Hydra Prime trailer. We don't know when that's coming out.
So I've got this list of upcoming features, right?
Do you have the link?
And yeah, no, I'll give you the link, right? But I want you to have a guess.
All right. We'll do the guessing thing.
Right. What do you think is... I've only had a glance at this. There might be something that's older, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the oldest thing that's been announced and not released?
Oh my god. I thought I went very far back with Devstream 80.
I can tell you it was before Devstream 80.
Damn. Oh god. Honestly, I've been looking for like Devstream over. Actually, there was a bunch of Devstream overviews in the wiki. I couldn't find the original Devstream overviews, which are like made on the forums by a user named AM Bunny or so. I used to read them all the time,
Yeah.
and then DE took over from that guy. And I was looking for his overviews because I think that they're the original overviews. I just couldn't find the user anymore. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. I don't know. I probably like if it's before 80, maybe sentient stuff. No, sentient carriers. Oh my god, that's one
Nope.
after 80. But I don't know. Tell me.
Nope. Nefanyo, the boss rework, was announced in Devstream 30.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
dude.
Still hasn't come out, right? And it's just like, a lot of the problem is that a lot of people think a lot of this stuff, it just ceases to exist, or it ceases to be relevant or important or what have you, right? However, it's just like we forget about it. We forget it. Like, we've got the sentient arm cannon. What happened to that? Right? We've got, let's have a look. The Lunaro Arcata? Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. Dual wielding Nakanas. That weird sword, the two-handed sword that the ghoul uses. I can't remember the name.
Oh yeah, like here, Warframes, Wisp, more Umbra frames. I didn't know Umbra frames. More Umbra frames were confirmed. Unnamed Warframe full.
Okay, so they've kind of undone that one. So it was a more recent dev stream. Steve and Jeff kind of basically said, we don't want to do any more Umbra Warframes. That one was hell. And like, I get it. Like,
Yeah, me too.
could you imagine one Umbra Warframe a year?
Honestly, like I think the Umbra Warframe made sense for Excalibur and as a substitute for Excalibur Prime. We've talked about it on stream where it was like I think Excalibur frames not Excalibur frames. We need more Excalibur variants. It's like 10 more. No, Umbra variants could be interesting from like a storyline perspective. Let's say that Umbra is the only sentient form of frames, which I don't believe. Or like giving Umbrals with like these Umbral slots. But I think it's weird if we would have a Warframe like the regular Warframes, Prime, and then Umbra frames. It would just make things very, very messy. And like the only way that I could see them do it without like bringing down the other frames, which you wouldn't want to do, is to release them through the Tau system, in a way that so like let me break this down. So Excalibur Umbra is the very first Umbra that was released. I believe it's going to be the only Umbra. I think it's the only Umbra right now. We can be rather certain of that, as certain as we can be. But if other frames were to be released, Excalibur Umbra has this very large quest around him with like a personal backstory behind Umbra, what he came to be. We had to like take down a character. He had an antagonist. He had like an entire character arc. If we were to have other Umbras, we would at least need to have like a certain quest line for them, because like why the hell would Excalibur Umbra have this entire story behind him, and then the next Umbra would just be like, oh yeah, you can just craft it. But that would take an immensely long amount of time, not only to design all the frames, but also like make the quest and like stories bound. So the only way that I could potentially see them being moved into the game was via the introduction of the Tau system, which, if you don't know, is a upcoming second solar system, which like the star chart which we have for now, but then somewhere else where sentients come from. Like the sentient faction was introduced in 2015. I still don't believe we've actually like fought them, because like they're just on. Go ahead.
So you say, "Oh, the Tau system is where the sentients come from." Do you know where they actually come from?
They come from the solar system, and they
You
went
mean
for
the solar system?
yeah, like the
The
Orochi.
origin system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's called the solar system because it's I mean whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
like the Orochi made them. They sent them to the Tau system, and then they came back through the void to us in very small.
Corpus made them. Seriously, the corpus made them. Yeah.
What?
So, yeah, if you want a huge lore dump, right, go check out Samaris, right? In, like, you know, when you go through the door, you got Samaris in front of you. The Cephalon to the left, or the just weird kiosk thing to the left. If you go talk to that, go read the crewman plot, the lore dump for the crewman, you'll actually learn a lot about the sentience. So, like this, oh god, Archimedean, right,
Mm-hmm.
invented the sentient technology, and the whole point of it was to build a solar rail to go from the origin system to the nearest solar system, the Tau system, the nearest habitable solar system, which was the Tau system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the sentients would take a very long time to get there. However, they'd be marooned there. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And if they dared come back, they'd get poisoned by the void and they become infertile, as well as they'd start dying like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how Hunhao came back. I don't know if Hunhao left. I kind of hope he did, because otherwise it's a bit of a weird thing of how did Natar become infertile and things like this. So, but yeah, no. The sentients were certainly ours. They were invented by the Corpus, and it was a huge scam because basically Ballas tries to convince the other executors of the Orican Empire not to do the sentience, because they go against, don't mass produce the sentience because they go against the 7 principles or precepts. Principles. But because Ballas was like, "Oh no, we'll keep them away, like, get rid of them, burn them, and everything," he actually got the others. He tricked the others to actually say yes to the sentience. And there's this huge thing where he's like, at the end of it, he's like, "Yes, people only want something when you try to take it away from them."
It's like that's really funny because like I didn't know about like the corpus side of things. I do know that like the sentients, they came back to take revenge on the Orokin because they eventually made it to the Tau system. But like the lore thing aside, actually, like we're going on tangent of a tangent because I wonder we're already on like the Umbra tangent. But like the Umbra thing, like the only way that I could have seen it happen is like in this completely new solar system with completely new planets, and thus completely new boss nodes. It would make sense. Like the only way that I could see it make sense is if we would have a quest line that brings us to the Tau system that would then talk about like in depth about what Umbra frames mean, and thereby like kind of like filling up the backstory for all the Umbra frames, and then the Umbra frames will drop as parts on like the boss nodes like they do in the origin system, but then on the Tau system. It would be like a very like very like streamlined or canned way of like putting it in, but that would have been the only way that I could see them like logically like put it in without like doing a bunch of work, which would just be like revisited frames, which have already been revisited as primes. But yeah, we were talking about the drop projects right here. I think it's very interesting that we have this entire list of drop projects that like there's a lot to say. Like there are sentience carriers.
You keep saying dropped. Let's go shelved. I don't want to. Okay, I'm now starting to feel. I understand why DE don't want to actually highlight this stuff, because it kind of makes people. I'm worried people are going to. We've already had someone tell us they dropped the Kingpin system. Like, no, we don't think they've dropped the Kingpin system. They have shelved the Kingpin system.
Excuse me. That was
they intend to come back.
Okay, so shelved. All right, so let's talk about like the shelf projects then. I've lost your camera. I might have lost you as well. I think you're returning. let me wait for Xena to return.
I briefly muted my microphone so I could cough, and then Discord's just like, I'm going to restart now.
Oh, shit. All right.
Professional.
Yeah. All right. So
My webcam.
we'll wait for your webcam to come back. Okay. So, I think that there is you make a very fair point with the positive PR, because let's not forget the Devstream is not officially officially the Devstream should not just be a dry presentation of every single fact, because it's also a community interaction, which includes there needs to be room for jokes, there needs to be room for like community interaction, which isn't like you could call that fluff, you could call that like the fun stuff around the Devstream, the memes, but it also includes like keeping in mind what do you present and what do you not present. However, one thing that was mentioned all the way back in the chat, which I thought was interesting, and I kind of agree with it, is like I think my view on life in general, which I think like is a very high principle to uphold, is that you should always act in an honest way towards anything. You should almost be honest to a fault, because if you're not being honest in a way that you're like if you're not being honest in the way you speak, like I try to be honest with everything that I say and do, because I think that acting, if you say you're going to do one thing but you don't act that out, you're acting out a lie. I think that it's very important to act and speak the truth, because the moment that you speak the truth, you're speaking reality. The moment that you start speaking lies, the moment that you're not like that you're turning around the truth, you may create a nice fiction, but it's a fiction. And like the more fictions you start dealing with, that does not negate the reality. The reality will still be there, and the more you move away from that, the bigger the thing that you're avoiding becomes, until it might eventually come back to you. So I think that for everyone's like interest, being honest about a situation is very important. That being said, like that doesn't mean that you have to say everything like the movie Liar Liar with Jim Carrey, where it's like he goes around and says everything bad about him to every random person on the street. But when it comes to projects like not sharing that you've shelved them, or not like actually like not even the shelving, but not like addressing the negative stuff. I saw some concerns of people in chat saying, well, is it all right to make Warframe like this Warframe idea if it's all a utopia? I think that is a bad practice as well, because if you bring things forth as though it's a utopia, you're creating this fictional world where everything is all right, and you might get away with that, but sooner or later things will come back for you. Case in point, Anthem, which was pretty much like presented as this beautiful thing where nothing went wrong, until it actually came out, and we all saw
just that. Just to clarify, are you talking about the delivery of Warframe and Anthem, or are you talking about the game's aesthetic?
I'm talking about the delivery. So I'm talking about, let's say that we're talking about a Devstream, and they just say that everything is always fine and everything is exactly as it's scheduled, and we never shelve anything. We're just still in development with it. This flight along, we've anticipated that would take 1 year and 7 months. That's all fine. It's like, if you keep that up with everything you say, then people will start to believe you less and less, because you're not dealing with the truth. And you like, as long as like, I think it's really important that you keep hand in hand with the truth, and you should not negate the negative news in order to keep up this fiction. Again, I think that there is a balance with like you shouldn't go out and like list off all your faults. But I think it's like I don't know where this line should be, where like you do talk about like the negative things, but I don't think that should be completely wiped off the table.
I get where you're coming from. It's really difficult to choose where to draw the line. You know, I certainly think that some transparency is really important, but at the same time, you don't want to give the perception that everything's on fire, right? Had EA turned around and said, oh yes, well, you see, we decided to take all our talented developers from BioWare and put them on FIFA like a week before Anthem was due out, yeah, sales would have dropped like a stone. People would have cancelled pre-orders. It's a perception, right? Now, DE are responsible not only they're not only held responsible to us, to their employees, but also their stakeholders, right? And this could be one of them would be Steve, right? Because he owns a chunk of the company, right? One of them would be, I can't remember his name, the CEO of Digital Extremes.
He was in the documentary.
Yeah, it was in the No Clip documentary.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Me
I
neither.
feel bad now. But you have to give a perception of things are good, right? But at the same time, to be honest, a part of me feels that maybe it would be better for projects like the Kingpin system, if it's going to be we didn't do too well, or it's not done as well as we'd hope it would, they do something that's on the side, like a blog entry, right? Because to be honest, not many people read those, right?
Yeah.
Many more people prefer to watch something and engage with it than to actually
read it. Like go to a separate page where there's only text and maybe some images, and it says Warframe partners, and no one actually looks at that. No. I wanted to get back to two things that you said. First, let's get to the EA thing, because like what you say, it's true that like if EA would have come around and shared the entire story of Anthem the week before it came out, it would have been bad. The thing though with that is that I believe that that is the result of, I think that game was in like built like progress for 6 years of a lie that had been built up for 6 years. That's
a fairly good point. That is a really, really good point.
And I think that if they had been honest from the start, not just like with the public, but also with themselves, then that situation would have been completely avoided. And yes, they would have missed out on, like, if they would have announced it like the week before, it would have been a really bad sell. The thing though is that reality always comes back. And if it wasn't right at that moment the week before the sale, it's right now, because Anthem is not doing well. And it's like, this is where reality comes back, and it will come back in any way. And it's like, maybe it's a short term, maybe like on the short term, like if you wouldn't have said it the week before, then people wouldn't have bought it. So it's better you didn't say it the week before. However, the result is that if Anthem launches and it is a shitty game, which it might very well be, depending on your opinion of it, you're gonna have that loss anyway. Well, you're gonna have that loss in another way. So, like, let's say that they were honest with themselves from the start, then Anthem could have been a 10-year long game that did amazingly well, sold a bunch of microtransactions. You don't know how much profit they lost out on. So, on the short term, it was a really good idea. On the long term, I don't think it's a good idea to like be, or to like never to like keep up useful fictions, because they will always get back to you. And this is what I'm talking about with Warframe. It's like, be honest and don't like present this useful fiction. And like another thing that I want, like the second thing that I wanted to touch on, because like you brought it forward, like the Kingpin system that they weren't quite sure of. I think that they don't have to say everything. Okay, like as I said, you tell the truth to a fault. However, you don't have to be like liar and say everything. So like what they did with the second dream is that they never said something false, as far as I can recollect, about the second dream, because they barely spoke about it, and then there it was. The problem with the Kingpin system is that it was announced at an early stage, and then it never, like, as of today, it hasn't come to fruition. So I think that you would be better off announcing things like the Plains of Eidolon or Fortuna when you know that you're actually going to do them, when you have a high degree of certainty that you're actually going to do them. As an example, with the Kingpin system, maybe that was an unfortunate mistake, but let me bring forward like the 2018 example of where we had sacrifice, Plains of, well, Fortuna being announced as Plains of Venus, the Dark Sector improvements, and the raids in 4 consecutive death streams. Everyone knows, I mean, well, I wouldn't say everyone knows, but it's very clear that those 4 things are not going to be done within a reasonable span of time. Then I believe you shouldn't bring those up at that point, especially with things that are very uncertain, don't bring it up, because you're setting yourself up either for a massive success or for having to like come back and bring out this negative news. And it might be like on the short term right now, if you wouldn't like release these things that you these concepts that you have that you aren't entirely sure of, then maybe it will hurt you in the short term because, oh, I can't announce something. But if you move to the long term, then that would mean that the Devstream, everything that's being said in the Devstream, to a certain degree of certainty, but I think with like a higher degree of like success rate than it does right now, would be everything that's shown comes in. It comes into the game within a reasonable expectation of time, because we're not announcing concepts like a Kingpin system that could fail, or we're not announcing things that are like Dark Sector reworks that after a year we still haven't had any updates on. But it's actually something, hey, we're working on Railjack, and we think it's ready within half a year, and we're very certain about that. Hey, we've taken out raids out of the game, but we have this thing which is going to be done in 3 months' time. I think that would be a better approach, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I think that in some cases, releasing information is beneficial because you can see the attitude. My thought is, had they not diverted resources to do the sacrifice, DE would have gotten Fortuna out by August. Yeah, I think they, because we saw the environment, right? A lot of it was there. Yeah, a lot of it wasn't there. A lot of it's so much of it has changed. There's stuff that unfortunately I still can't talk about because they never implemented it, and unless it's public knowledge, I can't talk about it.
Yeah,
right. So I think that in some cases, announcing stuff beforehand drives up hype, which makes people more attentive to the game as a product, right? Which is beneficial for the game itself. But at the same time, people that have been on this train for literal years know the routine. Even if it's subconsciously, they know the routine. And being told, yeah, we've got this sentient arm cannon, it's going to be huge, and you're going to destroy the Polyverse. It's when it doesn't actually happen, you're like, where do you, as a viewer, as a player, draw the line of it's not going to happen?
All right.
Yeah?
I think that's a very interesting question to pose for both of us.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you here, but I want to bring forward what I think where I would draw the line, and then if you bring up where you draw the line, and maybe we have some response from the live chat now, then we can try and imagine where this line is, because I think it's a very interesting concept that you brought up. Because this line, I feel it's the most clear when it comes to players that have been playing the game for about 2 years. During that, content creators that have played the game for about 2 years, because that's the demographic that I am situated with during the time. But I think it's the most clear during the TennoCon reveals with content creators that have been playing for a little over 2 years. You can account for individual differences, but mostly if you have content creators have been playing for over 2 years, you go to TennoCon, they announce this amazing thing, especially last year when they announced Fortuna and the new war. People are really excited. However, the next day, people log into Warframe, or they look at Warframe, and they're like, nothing has changed. And everything is oh, this was really excited, but yeah, we'll just have to see when it comes around. It's it's really, really cool, but we'll have to see when it comes around. And that difference is very individual to how excited people are, but this excitement that D brings up with a Tenno Live, which is an exaggerated Devstream, I believe, especially because if you're live there, it's much more impactful than a Devstream. The feeling of hype is amplified, but also the down low is amplified at that too, and I think that speed rate is increased because you're expecting so much, and then like you go into Warframe and it's still the same thing, and you're like, well, last year we saw the Plains final that it only came out in October, so being excited for like Fortuna, we're gonna have to wait a couple of months. So I think that that is an interesting point for me, where it's like within a couple of days. For me personally, when it came to the Devstreams, it's been, I think I started watching them in 2015, and in 2017, 2018, like about a year and a half ago, I kind of stopped watching it because I was like, if there's something that's coming into the game, I'll see that it comes into the game. And if it's not in the game, I'm not going to care because like so many things have been promised and we're not getting it. So like looking at a Warframe's like Wisp abilities, sure, it's really cool when they're first shown off, but like we saw with Garuda that her ultimate changed. So like what do I gain from watching that and then not getting that in the game? So I think that for me it was like 1.5, 2 years of me watching the dev streams and kind of figuring that out. And then like when it comes to like big hype updates or like big things that they're announcing, which I'm rather certain of, it falls off after a couple of days, especially when we had a situation of last year's TennoCon where there's actually nothing new in the game, and you're like, well, the game is still the same, and we don't know how long we have to wait. But how is that for you?
See, that's really interesting how you put that, because for me personally, I love Warframe because it's a co-op experience, which I just love. I'm not a PvP player, right? Mostly because the people that I play with, my dear friends, I love them to bits. They get oh so hostile when things aren't going their way, or they start screaming down the headset going, come pick me up, come pick me up, come pick me up. And I'm like, dear God, back off. So I'm much more of a PvE player, and I love co-op. Back in 2013, when I first picked up Warframe, I was looking for ages for a co-op game that was fast-paced, that was a shooter, that I could play with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And Warframe ticked all the boxes, right? For me, I will happily continue to play Warframe on I wouldn't say daily basis, but at least a weekly basis. I enjoy playing it when I'm recording footage for 10 o'clock, regardless of what I'm doing. Even though that sometimes I want to just rip off the Arbiter's heads for trying to get that stupid aura former. But I don't necessarily need something to do in Warframe to enjoy just playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
So when things like TennoCon happen, when, hey, look, guys, we're going to be doing Fortuna and Railjack and the new war, like that is enough to stoke my fire for a good month and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
To like, oh, the game is still the same as I left it 2 weeks ago. But I'm enjoying myself because I'm happy. It's really interesting to hear that you turn around and say, game hasn't changed. But I'm like, I don't care if the game has changed.
So like I think that's a really interesting thing because like for me my like I would describe that my happiness levels with the game because like I've been like searching for what I enjoy about Warframe, and this is like a bit of a tangent, but bear with me. That Warframe a couple of years ago for me encompassed everything. So it was the game, it was the new updates, it was every part of the game, it was the community as like the entire community, it was the dev team, and it was the creators around it. That was all Warframe, and I enjoyed Warframe. Over that time, I have come to like find some aspects of it that I enjoy less. To put it like in that perspective, where there are certain things where either I've spent too much time with, or I've seen things towards those elements of Warframe where I'm like, I really don't enjoy that. I really do not support that. There are certain changes in the game that I do not support, that I'm really upset with. And I see with a lot of I see that right now with a lot of streamers. Like, as to like give an example of that, a lot of streamers here on Twitch are are either like very excited about the community, or you see a couple of people after a while turn around and say the Warframe community is not a nice community. They only care about the game. They only care about your glyph. And to be honest, like, I understand that transition because I've been there as well. When I played Warframe and I started streaming and we did the events, I was super excited about like all these cool people that I met. But then I got my glyph, and I got my glyph the morning that I woke up. When I got it, I had already like 20 messages in my inbox saying, "Hey, can I have your glyph?" from people I'd never met. And I was like, I don't have a glyph. I don't know why you're asking me. And people knew before I did that I had my glyph, and I was like, well, that's incredibly rude. It's like you didn't even let me announce it. Like, you already like knew, and you're like, I want to have that. And if you don't have like, I didn't have like a really strong community at that time. I hadn't really built that at that point. If your inbox is flooded with people that don't care about you, or like they're just like, hey, glyph, then like that doesn't brighten your day. The thing though is that is not the entire community. It took me some time to realize that, hey, well, those people are not really like the people that like I like that brighten my day. But some of my best friends, which include you, which include Cole and Devstream, people that I've met through Warframe have become some of my best friends, and they're like, that was through Warframe. Like Devstream and Jen and everyone here in the chat, I met you guys through this game. And you are also part, as much as you want or not, of the Warframe community. So that means that there is a difference between that. Like, the Warframe community it's not one thing. And then I was like, well, hey, these people that are asking for glyphs, they're also not one thing. Because yes, there are very hostile messages between it. And I've also seen content creators be like, if someone asks me for a glyph, I'll just block them. I don't care. But I've brought forward this idea of like, hey, we take this glyph, and the way to get it is like either subscribe or put in 10 loots in like 30 days. So that means that you have to stick around the stream. Like, if someone comes around and like does a glyph command, which I consider to be really rude because I don't have that command, I come forward and say, like, instead of like being like, hey, go away, because like it's brood, it's like, hey, what's up, how are you doing? And it turns out that a lot of people are really nice people that just like make a mistake and that don't consider like how that comes across, or maybe that's just how the weird peculiarity of me, that it comes across to me as weird. So there's a lot of separation between Warframe. Warframe is not one thing. And I personally, this is where the tangent comes back, I personally enjoy the core of the gameplay. I enjoy the core mechanics. I can get pretty tired about like some of the update stuff or direction stuff. The lack of end game in a sense, but I still enjoy like running around, and if I can like hang out with people and talk about Warframe and talk about daily life while I'm playing it and help people out, I enjoy that. So at the core, I enjoy Warframe. Bringing it back to where to start it off, so this is why it's relevant. To me, my levels of enjoyment of Warframe as the game before and like 2 days after TennoCon are the exact same, because the game hasn't changed. The hype that I get from the reveals, that dies off. That doesn't mean that I don't like Warframe after that. It just means that like it hasn't increased more, because yeah, they've given this idea, which is really, really cool, but I don't have something. I also don't have like a release date to work towards and be like, hey, this is coming out. Because even like, I think it's pretty like known around here that like even partner creators don't know when an update is coming out until it actually comes out. And so it's not like I have something to work with. So like I can be really, really excited about, oh my god, it's coming out, but I'm getting excited about nothing until it's actually out. So that's the way that I view it. So like, now my question to you is, you say that you come back from TennoCon more happy. Does that mean that like, if you're happy about Warframe, how much of that happiness comes from like the game itself and like the general enjoyment that you have with your friends, or like the enjoyment that you have with your friends that come play the game because they've heard about TennoCon and they're like, oh, I'm gonna pick it back up? And how much comes from the knowledge of that sometime in the undisclosed future there might be an update? How much does that increase your happiness levels about the game?
Community for me is 99% of why I play Warframe, right? Be it pre or post TennoCon, right? Or Tenno Live, or whatever you want to call it. I don't watch the dev streams because, well, I enjoy just watching the dev streams because I love seeing the interaction between the people. I love just engaging with people. I rarely play Warframe and do anything complicated like arbitrations on my own. I much rather just go, I need to record footage for Warframe. Who can I hit up? And that's one of the best things I love about being a content creator is because I've made so many cool friends, right? Armena, Joey, you, other Joey, Crash. I mean, Crash. I've met so many, Tobiah. God, I've met so many cool people, even people from D themselves. And it's lovely to just be able to sit in the game, maybe have a complete and utter whinge about. Do people know what whinge means? Complain, whine,
Mm-hmm.
about how the drop rate for the aura former is ridiculously low, but at the same time, just being able to play with people and just talk to them over headset and things is just brilliant. I honestly don't understand how content creators or even players, and I mean zero offense when I say this, can play Warframe without interacting with other people. I don't know how they can do it.
I don't know either. Like I've had a time when I did play it. Like I started off with my cousin playing this game, and then I ended up he ended up leaving, and I stuck around because I made a promise to myself that this would be the first game that I beat him. I don't know if I ever said that, but yeah. So I ended up beating him because he never plays. Well, he rarely plays. Sometimes when he comes back. So there was a time where I continued playing it, and I was I was moving through mastering 5 to 12, and those are times where you get a lot of stuff. So that interested me and it kept me around. The thing was at some point that I started helping out other players because you want to have a sense of community, and I was working in the clan helping other players, and I started YouTube, and right now it's if I wasn't doing YouTube or Twitch, I would have probably moved on because I don't have people in my immediate vicinity that play this game. But yeah, a lot of it is around community. I think that's really, really important. It's I can sit in Warframe and we can sit in the Arsenal for about an hour and just talk, and that's fine. And I enjoy that. If I would have to do it by myself, I would never do it. I'd just leave.
Yep. No, I completely concur. I think that community, even having the humanization of the D staff members, being able to just turn to them during TennoCon, or if they're not hiding during TennoCon, or the EGX, or the fact that they go to other countries and host parties just to engage with players that cannot make the exorbitant cost of flying across seas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky. I know I'm lucky, right? I bloody worked for it,
Mm-hmm.
but I can afford to do it. And I know that a lot of people can't.
All right, so I think that this community thing is really important, but let's find the line of hype of how much hype is. Where do you draw the line of this much hype is acceptable and I'll be happy about it, and when does it kind of drop off? Because I think that was the thing where we came from with this. So I had my boundaries, which was I watched the Devstream for about 1.5 to 2 years, and I was well, I'll see when it comes in game, and I had after TennoCon, it takes a couple of days, and because there's nothing new in the game, that particular hype from the TennoCon doesn't add onto my game experience because I don't know when it's coming, and I don't know when I can expect because it's undisclosed. So where is it for you? And also in chat, let us know.
Yeah, I think for me, the boundaries for hype are when it's constantly spoken about in a dev stream. Probably 5 dev streams in a row. I was thinking is 4 too low? Is 6 too high? So yeah, let's go for 5.
Mm-hmm.
When it's spoken about 5 dev streams in a row, so we're talking 2.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, we're talking a month and a week. My bad.
No, it's 10 weeks.
It's 2.5 months.
Yeah.
It's 2.5 months. Yeah, sorry, my bad. I am right. I am. Yeah. So 2.5 months, and it's still not out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not seen the light of day. We've maybe seen the bit of new footage. If it's something huge like Fortuna, okay, still it's nice to get like the odd tease. Here's a diagram of the, but still, if it's 5 weeks, sorry, 5 dev streams in a row teasing something, it's still not out yet. That's, I think, my line. And it's just like, no, I'd rather not know about it until it's out. Yeah.
All right.
And I will always watch the dev streams.
All right. I think that that's like an interesting thing. I think that for me, that's like an example of that was Fortuna, where they like went on for 5 weeks on like the hunting. That was like a bit problematic for me, where I just zoned out. So with that, I think that we have established a proper definition, well, of like what hype, where the boundary of hype is. We've looked at what the dev stream, like we've looked at like what makes a dev stream, what constructs a dev stream, and what are acceptable boundaries for us as hype. Now that we have that, would you say that there are many instances where they do overhype? Do they tend like so? Okay, let's put it like this: do they overhype like all the time? Do they generally tend to overhype? Do they sometimes overhype? Do they, rarely overhype, or do they never overhype? Kind of like where does that stand? Our question is, does the dev stream overhype? We've set our definition of dev stream. We've set our definition of overhyping, where our boundaries are. So where do you think the dev stream falls on that scale? I think
so. On a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is they don't overhype, and 5 is they always overhype, right? I think it depends on the topic, but say it's the primary focus for the next patch, I'd say it's a 4. It's not always like, oh yeah, it's all dev stream all the time, but it is certainly at least one of the things on the dev stream. And I'm pretty sure the Jovian Accord has been on every dev stream since January or February. And again, it's like I'm a little relaxed on the Jovian Accord because we had night waves, and night waves were a nice distraction, but still like
I would agree. I think that I have the feeling I've seen Gasity for like over half a year already, and like that's starting to like bore me a little. Like, come on, get it out. I think that I agree. Like it's definitely on the like overhype scale, and I think that comes to the announcements. We haven't touched about like the memes and like the fan servicing. And I honestly feel that like I don't want to go in depth about it, because like we're kind of like I'm kind of at the end of my like I'm getting exhausted here, so losing focus a little bit. But I think that like that is not the big issue. The fan servicing, the hyping, and talking about things that don't really matter. It's like it's fine as long as you get the main points across. And I think that we looked at the main points, and I think that on those main factors that build up a dev stream, we're already seeing a 4 out of 5 overhype on like the scale of FrameCast. The FrameCast scale, we're on 4 out of 5 for the next coming weeks. So make sure that you dress appropriately and keep the clouds inside. But no, it's like I do feel that is more concerned. That is my bigger problem with the dev stream than actually like the fans are like I can say funny questions that don't really matter. Like I can take like memes and jokes. That's all fine. That's nice. But if they don't get like the core essentials of that, like what we talked about, and they're on the 4 out of 5 overhyping scale, then it's like, well, yeah, then it all becomes a little bit too much. Do you still want to do some questions from chat, or like?
Yeah, let's see if chat has any questions. If they want to ask us our opinions or anything, or if they have any key points themselves that they want to raise that we're not necessarily did ourselves. But let's bring the stream to a close with some lovely questions from chat.
Yeah. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead.
I hope I've delayed it by 30 seconds enough for people to start asking questions.
I'll delay it even more. If you guys have some questions, if you like questions around this subject or maybe more general questions, feel free to ask, and we'll try to like answer as much as to the best that we can, and we'll pick a couple until we feel that it's good enough. So yeah.
Okay. So Cephalon of Psi, sorry, Circle of Psi, my bad. Says a little bit of topic change, but what are your honest feelings on hype? As if you look on the forums, people post gifs and pray to the pray it's going to be today, and even go in game to make a red text cult. Do you think that that's on DE if they get disappointed or solely players? Oh, sorry. I need to adjust my UI because I know that there's a button somewhere that allows me to set it to dark mode. I just don't know where it is.
All right. Let me see. Good.
But I found it.
I think it's a very interesting thing. Let's break it up. So, we've looked at hype, and we've looked at like what is a little bit too much. I think that like hype is a broader subject. So, I think that hype comes back to me to what I said with being truthful. If hype is true, like if they're like hype, basically okay. Let's define hype. I think hype is creating anticipation, bringing forward the idea of something great, even though it's not out yet. It's like a tease. It's a big tease. Like, hey, get excited because this is happening. I think if it's done truthfully and honestly, then and the hype is being lived up with, I think that hype is essentially a good thing. Also, let me just come back up. So it's a good thing if it's being like lived up like truthfully and honestly. If it's being lied about, which happens frequently to a certain degree, then it's questionable because like if you were advertising something, let's take the example of Anthem advertised something, they didn't deliver, it's not a really good thing. The thing with people going to the forums, posting memes or gifs and pray that today it's gonna happen and making a red text cold, it's part of like the hype machinery. And as I say, like that's like basically like I think that like how good or bad that is decided by whether it's true or not. Do I think that it's on the people if they get disappointed or not, or is that on DE? I think that that question is that it has to do with it, but not entirely in the sense of like yes, I think is hype good or bad? That's dependent on how truthful like the spreader of the hype is. Is people getting disappointment on like the company or the people themselves? I think that's partly personal responsibility, like to have a critical eye at like, hey, is this possible? Is this like reasonable? I think one of the things that I see a lot of times when like they do a 10 live announcement and then 4 months later the update comes out, a lot of people, because they've had 4 months to think about it, their expectation grew to like such a high level that it couldn't be met. You see that with content draws. I think that's a main problem with content draws because people wait so long. They're like, see, right now you could make the case that, oh my god, the Hydroid parameter is going to be so good because it's been in production for over 2 years. It's not. But it's been out for 2 years, so, you could make that expectation. That is on you. If you make those expectations and, like, you believe everything there is, that's on you. That being said, if like, DE would come forward and say that Fortuna would be 5 times bigger or 4.5 times bigger than Planes, and then they deliver something that's smaller than the Planes of Eidolon, then that's on them. Then that disappointment is on them. Just like if they were to say that, hey, it comes out this week, and then it doesn't come out this week, part of the thing is on you because like you should have like a critical eye to and be like, well, there is a chance that that's coming out this week. But if they say something and then they're not they're not acting honestly on like what they said, to a degree where it's not like, oh, this is what came up, but this is like and we have to delay, which I did last week. But like if it's just like it's just not what they said, then it's also on them. But yeah, I think that's where I stand on Xeno.
So if DE hasn't said it's coming out today, and players are creating the cult of red text, trying to get it to happen, I'm sorry, it's solely on them. It's solely on the player because come on. If DE say it's going to be out this week and it's not, then yeah, it's kind of on them. It's on DE because, well, I think, yeah, no, I want to say it is, and I want to say it's on everyone.
Yeah, it is.
You should expect it to not necessarily land, but at the same time, if you're told it's going to land, so yeah, I think Empire is on DE as well. That, and the majority of that, yeah, that's DE.
It's to me to like the degree of certainty that they bring it out. If like they say that Fortuna is going to bring like a 4 times open world, and then they deliver 4 times open world, but you expected, because they said it's going to be an interactive open world, and you expected that there would be like, it would be exactly like the Division 2 where you could move around and change everything, then that's on you, because they didn't say that, and you should have been critical about that. And if you're like, oh, they said, well, it's going to be out in 3 months. They said it at like 10 on Life, and then they come back after 2 months and they say, well, it's probably going to be delayed. Then you can't be hyped in 3 months, because like they said that, and it's on you. But like it's also at the degree of like honesty. I think that's really, it's like it's dependent on like the developer, but it's very much on you, as like it's also on you, and like that degree varies in how honest they are. But yeah, like partly on you, partly on the developer, and like hype really depends on like the developer, how true they are with the hype that they bring forward, and whether it's good or not. But yeah. All right. Do we have another question?
Not specifically about hype. We do have the question from Bad Max 88. What do you think about the Flydalon's bosses? Which I think is, what do you think about the Flydalon boss? And as part of the whole hype thing, I kind of feel that they're kind of slyly underplaying it, because it was a huge thing before, and I'm like, why is it slowly sliding along to be in this update?
Yeah, I'm not having super high expectations, to be honest, because it's Flightolon, it's part of the Eidolons. It's like, it's weird that's been taking so long, and it's not a main statement. It's not a main forward. It's called the Jovian Concord. It's not the Flightolon. So I'm like, well, it's been really downgraded in importance. So I'm not gonna I'm gonna reserve my ideas and my opinions of it for when it actually comes in the game and I can see it.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. So
right, I'm getting the impression we're done.
Me too.
So, yeah.
So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, if you still want to like have something to finish up with, then we can finish off. And if that's it, then that's it.
Yeah. Just gonna say, Michelle, thank you very much for having me on. We are going to make this a regular weekly Tuesday thing. I'm going to look to make a 15-minute version of these, but I don't know how easily I can do them because of time restraints and this week being really busy for me. So, yeah, if you want to, don't forget to check out Michelle's channel, which do you actually have a short link? You do, don't you? It's youtube.com/Michelle Postma.
Yeah, we have Michelle Postma for the main channel, and Postma Lone Games on the gaming channel. And of course, Xenogelion at 10 o'clock. YouTube.com/Xenogelion. It's YouTube.com/10 o'clock for Xeno right here. Guys,
I completely forgot I had 2 channels.
Well, you only recently made them, all right? So,
yeah.
But yeah, I think, okay, so YC Wing talked about Endgame. Do you really want, like he asked it 2 times, do you really want to quickly touch on that or not?
I think that's better off a topic on its own.
That's better off. We'll talk about that in the future, guys. If you enjoyed this, let me know. Let us know in wherever you're seeing this in like the comment section. It's also going to be uploaded on YouTube. This entire thing on my YouTube channel. And if you want to see the short down version on Xeno's channel, let us know what you think of this. And if you have any ideas, suggestions, let us know, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you around.
Bye.
Bye.